It was a foggy evening when I, Officer Sam Klein, got the call that would change everything. The wealthiest man in our city, Victor Lancaster, had been found dead in his sprawling mansion, the lights of which could be seen from miles away. His empire was built from tech, real estate, and a string of businesses that made him untouchable, or so everyone thought. As I pulled up to the mansion, the first thing that struck me was how quiet it was. The air felt thick, the kind of stillness that only happens after something tragic. The big, iron gates were open, but there was no sign of a struggle. Just a death. The doors to the grand mansion swung open as I approached, and I was met by an officer I knew from the precinct. "Sam, it's bad," Officer Reed said. "Victor Lancaster. He's gone." I nodded and stepped inside, knowing this wasn't going to be an ordinary case. The house was enormous, a palace of glass and steel, furnished with the finest things money could buy. Yet, amidst the luxury, the air felt empty, as if the mansion itself was holding its breath. I was led to the study where Victor was found. There, on the plush Persian rug, lay the body of Victor Lancaster. His eyes were wide open, as though he had been shocked by something. His mouth slightly agape, frozen in what seemed like terror. A gun was found in his hand, and at first glance, it seemed like a suicide. But something didn't sit right with me. There were too many loose ends. The angle of the gun, the way it was held, and the expression on his face, all of it screamed something different. It looked staged. I was about to call it in when a voice came from the doorway. I wouldn't jump to conclusions if I were you. I turned sharply, ready for another officer, but the man who stood there was no one I recognized. Tall, dark, and almost unnaturally calm, his eyes locked onto mine with an unsettling gaze. "Who the hell are you?" I demanded, my hand instinctively resting on my holster. He wasn't a cop. He wasn't anything I'd ever seen before. "A friend," the man said, stepping closer. "I think you need some help solving this." I took a step back, unsure of what was going on. "I don't need any help from anyone. We'll handle this, thank you." The stranger smiled, and something about it made my gut twist. "You think it's a suicide? You're wrong." I narrowed my eyes. "What makes you think that?" "I know things," he said, "things about the people involved. Trust me, the truth is far more complicated." He didn't explain further, but something in his tone made me uneasy. A feeling that this man wasn't just another bystander. Maybe he knew something about the billionaire's death that we didn't. I decided to give him a chance. "All right, you've got my attention. What do you know?" His eyes gleamed as he stepped forward. "Victor Lancaster didn't kill himself. He was murdered." That was all he said, and for a moment, I was convinced the man was either insane or a genius. "Explain," I growled, not in the mood for riddles. The stranger began his tale, speaking in slow, deliberate words. Lancaster was surrounded by people who would have benefited from his death. His business empire was built on ruthless ambition, but there were hidden enemies, people who wanted to see him fall. He had too many skeletons in his closet, and some of them came to claim their prize. He paused, letting the tension build. Take Charles Miller, his closest business partner. A man who always seemed loyal, yet was drowning in debt. A man who owed everything to Victor, but secretly plotted his downfall. I could feel my heart pounding in my chest. I knew Miller. He was one of the first people I had thought of when we arrived at the scene. He was the obvious suspect. But, the stranger continued, Miller didn't kill Lancaster. No, Miller's guilt runs deeper. He tried, but he failed. And when he saw that his plan had backfired, he took the only way out he saw, suicide. You'll find a letter on his desk. A confession, yes, but also a desperate plea for forgiveness. I was already dialing Reed to check out Miller's office. The stranger was right. There had been something off about Miller, too calm, too composed for someone who had just been in the midst of a crisis. But that's not the whole story, is it? I asked, looking at the stranger. The man smiled again. Of course not. You think this case is simple? There's another player, Sophia Lancaster, Victor's wife. I turned to him sharply. Sophia Lancaster? She wouldn't. Oh, she would, the stranger interrupted. Victor had a mistress, you see. Sophia knew all about it. She had her own secrets, a network of people that she used to keep Victor in line. But when she found out about his most recent affair, she snapped. I felt the weight of his words like a stone dropped into a well. You think she killed him? The stranger nodded. Not directly. But she pushed him. Guilt and anger drove her to do something drastic. She orchestrated the situation to make it look like a suicide, knowing full well it would raise suspicions and drag in the people who wanted to see him gone. I was silent for a moment, processing his words. This was no ordinary case. It was a web of lies, deceit, and desperation. Every person in that house had a motive, and yet none of them were truly guilty. I turned to the man, about to ask more questions, but he was already gone. Vanished, without a trace. The case was never fully solved, but the pieces started to fall into place. The real truth was murky, obscured by lies and the weight of a fortune that had been built on too many broken promises. As for the mystical stranger, I never saw him again. But sometimes, in the quiet moments when I'm alone with my thoughts, I can almost hear his voice. And I can't help but wonder if he was more than just a witness.